Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name's Karen Karadianis, and I'm the Director of International Admission at Bentley University. I know we have just an hour's amount of time for you today, so I think I'm going to focus on our preparing and a winning application. So that is really the do's and don'ts of writing your college essay. And then following that, for those of you who want to stay on, I will do a brief 10-12-minute presentation about Bentley, but I think the focus should be on the winning application. In the chat feed,
Oh, sorry.
Preparing a winning essay.
Yeah.
My apologies. In the chat feature, I have put a link. It's a registration link, and I'm going to encourage you to register for this event. I will send you then handouts on the tips on writing your college essay, which will then make your application a winning application electronically, but I don't have your contact information. So by putting your information into this registration form, I can then download it, and then later this evening, I will send you all both the do's and don'ts on writing your college essay, as well as tips on writing your college essay. Now, I was just explaining that I really want to make this session interactive. So believe it or not, once I share my screen, I'm not really going to be able to see you. So I'd rather have you unmute yourself and ask me questions. And I will take natural pauses and say, are there any questions? But please, you're not bothering me by interrupting me. This whole session is all about you. And so with that said, I'm going to ask you all of you right now to unmute yourself, because we're going to do a true-false quiz together. And once I share my screen, I am not going to be able to see you. So the only way I'm going to know if you have an answer is if you scream out true or false. Okay, so let's get. Yes, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry, I'm just gonna say to everyone who's here in Portuguese, if they have any concerns with language and they need my help to translate to you, to feel free. Pessoal, meu nome é Fernanda, sou aqui do EducationUSA e estou aqui com o prazer de apresentar esse webinar com a Karen Karadianis, da Bentley University, e a apresentação será toda em inglês, mas se alguém tiver alguma dúvida, quiser fazer pergunta, não se sentir confortável, eu estou aqui para ajudar, tá bom? Fiquem à vontade, estamos juntos nessa. Tenha uma ótima sessão. Thank you, Karen.
No, you're very welcome. So as I share my screen with you, you will see all the true-false questions. And I want to make sure that you see them all. Do you see them all right now?
Yes.
You do? Perfect, because I can't see you, so I don't know if you can see them. So let's start with question number 1. The most important part of your essay is the subject matter. True or false?
False.
False. I'm gonna say
Why
false.
would you say false?
Well, I believe, as far as I know, I might be wrong. The most important part should be like the motivation that you have for this specific program. Is that so?
Well, that would be true of the application. But when it comes to your essay, the reason why the most important part is the subject matter is because universities have certain expectations. I've been in this career for 35 years. I've worked for 5 universities, ranging from your most competitive Ivy Leagues to less competitive. So I've read a lot of applications in my lifetime. The first expectation is that you read the question and answer the question. It's an expectation. The second expectation is that even if English is not your first spoken language, there should be no grammar and no spelling mistakes. So then what becomes the most important part of this personal statement is what you write, what you choose to write about. Make sense? Okay. Question number 2, true or false? You should expect to devote about 1 to 2 weeks simply brainstorming ideas for your essay. Do you think that's true or false?
I think it's true.
I think it's true.
It is true. In fact, when I did my research on this, most experts were saying you need 4 to 6 weeks exclusively on brainstorming. And when I spoke to my colleagues in Boston area universities, we all agreed no student is going to devote their entire summer, or at least half of it, just focusing on preparing their subject and brainstorming concepts for their essay. But we thought realistically 1 to 2 weeks was a fair time frame. So you're absolutely right. A paragraph response is an essay, true or false?
False.
I think it's false.
It is false. You're absolutely correct. Institutions require you to have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And a paragraph is what's used for a short essay response, but not for, or I should say short question response, but not for an essay. Make sense? Question 4. If the essay topic is awesome, then an admissions counselor will overlook spelling and or grammar errors.
It's false.
It is false. We just answered that in the first question. Most universities, and this leads to a response that I received from one of you. Most universities, oh, and it looks like I'm being Zoom bombed. Most universities, excuse me, I just want to do something. Oh, I wasn't able to fix it. So let me see if I can fix it. Most universities appreciate essays that provide convincing evidence on how an applicant will fit into their university. True or false?
True.
True. Absolutely correct. And your essay topic should repeat information listed elsewhere on your application. True or false?
I think it's false.
You're absolutely
I
right,
think it's
Anna. Do you
true.
have any idea as to why you think it's false?
Well, I guess it's because they don't want us to repeat information all the time, because they're able to get those information on other parts of the application.
Anna, you
Yeah,
should be here and deliver this with me. You're absolutely right.
Thanks.
yeah, the information is on the CV or other documents, right? Okay.
Because the reality is there, especially if you're using the common application form, which is one application that fits all of our documents, right? It's one application for all universities. So whatever documents you submit, every university is going to see them. When using the common application form, you're going to have a section that you list out your activities. You'll have a section where you can list out awards. You're going to have a section that you can list out honors. Why take one of those activities? And we see it all the time. Students will write about community service or a sporting event. We already have it highlighted in your activities. So why not tell us something different and something new about you? Because we don't want you, or we ourselves actually don't want to focus on just your grades and the courses that you've taken. We want to see you come alive. And that's exactly the purpose of your essay. So I'm going to stop sharing this quiz. It was short and sweet, and I'm going to get to our PowerPoint presentation. So give me a second to upload that. And I'm hoping. Do you all see the PowerPoint that says the college application do's and don'ts?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So let's get started. Here's my first question for you all. Why do colleges use the essay? I already gave you a little hint as I concluded that little quiz.
Because they want to know more about you. So
You're absolutely right, Luca. We want to know more about you. The essay helps us accomplish at least one, if not all of these points that you see on the screen. We're really looking to get a true picture of who you are. It brings humanity to your application. It makes who you are on paper come alive. And I really want you to remember that. It's also your opportunity to make sure that we, as admissions counselors, truly understand what we're seeing in the numbers and the lists. Remember, the list of activities. The numbers are your grade point average, your individual grades. If a university requires a standardized test result, it's all of those factors. We're trying to capture who you are. In today's presentation, we're going to talk about what you should do. And then we're going to talk about what you shouldn't do. So in the coming slides, we'll talk about who your audience is, the importance of choosing a topic that you're passionate about, keeping the reader engaged. Like I said in the beginning when we started this quiz, really making sure that you have correct spelling and grammar and making your essay memorable. So I'm going to start off with a question for you all. And we're going to start off with knowing your audience. Who do you think reads your application?
The selection committee.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
I'm sorry, like I think this is the pronunciation committee, the selection committee.
Yes, the admissions counselors who are making decisions on your application. Absolutely. Who else do you think reads your essay? Let me give you some hints. Do any of you play sports? Are any of you thinking about playing sports when you go to university?
yes.
Absolutely. So maybe a coach, because our coaches often get your application before we get your application. So maybe a coach is going to be the one who's going to be reading your essay because they want to get a flavor of who you are and how you are as a team player or potentially as a leader. At our university, sometimes universities have faculty read the essays. And I'm going to give you an example where a faculty did read an essay and it actually changed our mind with respect to a decision. At some universities, Bentley being one of them, we even have our vice president read essays because we narrowed down our pool of students for full tuition scholarships. And she's part of that committee to help us select. So all of these people have something in common. They're all professionals in the higher ed industry at the universities you're applying to. But they are not your peers, your parents, and your teachers. So you tell me, what is the difference?
They don't know us.
Exactly. Exactly, Cynthia. Are you sure you haven't participated in this event before?
No.
Your parents, your peers, and your teachers know you. So when they read your essay, they may be able to interpret things differently, right? Because they know you. So maybe it's not presented clear enough, but it is presented in such a way that they know what you're trying to say. We don't know that. We don't know that. So there's certain essays that you should write for a university application, and there's certain essays you should certainly avoid because you don't even know the audience. So choosing a topic. Remember, when selecting an essay topic, I strongly, strongly encourage you to choose a question or choose an option of your own if that is available to you, and write about something you're passionate about. Why do you think I say that? Why do you think I say write about what you're passionate about?
Like I guess it's because it will be easier for us to write, and also like it should be the reason for us to do, like to try to study abroad, like to follow our passion. So I think this is the main reason.
That is the reason. Writing about what you're passionate about is so much easier, and historically, it will be your best work. So we tell you, be smart about controversial essay topics. Stay away from persuasive essays. And be smart about how much personal information you divulge when writing your essay. What I mean by that is it's okay to write an essay about something very personal, as long as it's done tastefully and it has a purpose. So I'm going to read for you, sorry if you just saw my papers in front of my face, some essays today, some excerpts of essays. Here's a personal essay, and I won't be reading them in their entirety. I'm just going to give you bits and pieces of essays and then summarize the content for the sake of time and Zoom fatigue. Here we go. Death was imminent as I crawled into the hospital bed with her and remembered a time when I was younger, when my mother had been admitted to the hospital for several months of recuperation from the near-death experience of her bone marrow transplant. Every day I would visit her, and she would save me the apple juice box from her inedible hospital meal, and happily I would think that that was the best part of my day. Now there was no apple juice box, no child's innocence, just my mother and I together for what I didn't know would be the last time. Very personal. Clearly you see here that her mother has passed away. But the purpose behind this essay was her passion and aspirations. You see, she tried to tell us two very important things. One, while we saw over a 7-month period a drop in her grades, she didn't want us to think she wasn't learning. But because her mother was not going to be there for her high school graduation, her college graduation, when she got married, and when she had her first child, during that time, her mother taught her about life. So there was learning that took place, just not the traditional classroom learning. She also realized that in her country, there were no resources to help her through this really challenging time in her life. So the reason why she was looking at our other university, and I'm sure other universities as well, was that it was her goal to open up a nonprofit organization to work with children whose parents are terminally ill. Now, Bentley being a business university, in the design of her essay, she convinced me to overlook that semester's worth of grades. And I could already see from her aspirations that we have the toolkit to help her achieve those goals. Perfect example of sharing something very personal and explaining and informing us of what her aspirations were, as well as grades. Any questions so far? Okay. We already touched upon briefly choosing a topic that you're passionate about. And I think it was you, Cynthia, who said that when you write about something you're passionate about, it produces your best work. It's not about impressing the admission committee with the topic you think we want to see, but more showing us about your true self. Writing about what colleges you think want to hear really does an injustice to you, the applicant. So I have a piece of advice for you, which regretfully is not in the handouts that I will be sending you, but I want you to write it down, because if there's one piece of information that I want you to remember at the end of this session is this. Your essay should be 25% story, 75% about you. I'm going to repeat this multiple times throughout this workshop because that's how important it is. I'm going to read you a portion of an essay that has to do with passion. I can't stress enough, when we first read his application, he was not supposed to be admitted. Here is the example where our faculty changed our minds. During my freshman year in high school, I was looking for a new desktop computer to replace my outdated late model machine. Technology had changed rapidly, and so had my computing needs. As I investigated the computers offered by major companies like Dell, HP, Sony, I realized that the pricing was very high for equipment that I would define as minimal. So I decided I was going to build my own computer. At Bentley, we have a fabulous computer information systems major. So already I'm seeing the match here. For months, I researched components assessing functionality, performance, price, and most importantly, the quality of the parts. Over the years, I found the parts and I would ask during holidays or picked up odd jobs in order to be able to purchase them. Once I received all the parts, I planned out how I would assemble the case and got started. Throughout this gentleman's essay, he explains in detail how he installed the CPUs to the motherboard, how he mounted the motherboard to the case, how he installed heat sinks and multiple hard drives, creating also his own advanced video card. He talks about customizing cathode lights and installing multiple fans for cooling. And in order to make it one of a kind, he also did all of these other functionalities. When he was through building the computer, he taught me something else about himself, that he knew how to program. And while programming, he shared with me how he went about making some fail safes to ensure that it would be much more difficult for his computer to be hacked into. He also shared that he created a certain type of shutoff temperature warning system to ensure that his CPU doesn't get too hot and destroy the processor. And once he finished, he turned it on. Now, I'm an admissions person, right? I am not a computer scientist. So I was really impressed by this. And what impressed me the most is while it took him 3 years to build this computer, 3 years later, he shared that it was the most reliable computer he had ever heard of, that it ran faster than the computers that were being marketed today and cost him half the price. So I shared this essay with one of our faculty members because I just didn't know if he really knew what he was doing. And because I don't have that expertise, I certainly didn't know if I understood what he was doing. And immediately the professor said, can I have this kid's email? And I'm like, why is this essay fraud? He says, quite the contrary. He has put in some concepts in here that I never would have thought of myself. And I want to help admissions convince him to choose our university. You admitted him, right? And I was just like, well, he was actually on the fence, but I will definitely admit him now. The value of writing an essay that you're passionate about. Any questions so far? All right then.
I do have one.
Absolutely. Ask it, Glenda.
For example, if they ask us to write like a personal statement, you said for you write about like about we are passionate about, but we need to put a title on the essays, or we do not, because if they ask us a question, we're going to write an essay answering their questions, but we should put a title or not.
That's your choice. The challenge with putting a title is it counts toward your word count. And that brings me to this next slide. If you're using a common application form, you have to have a minimum of 250 words and a maximum of 650 words.
Oh.
It will automatically cut you off at 650 words. So when you put a title, you're wasting word space.
Oh, but in my case, like the university asked for essay very short. So like each word count for me, and it's not the case right now.
If it's a university's personal application, it's not the common application form itself, correct?
Yes.
If it's a university's personal application and they don't have a word count, then by all means, you can certainly put a title.
Yeah,
Just
actually,
like when
they
you write
do.
an essay, you will put a title more often than not. When it's the common application form you're doing and you have a maximum word count, I would think twice about using a title because you don't want to lose valuable words.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome. You was perfect segue into this slide because the importance here is depending on the type of application that you are filling would determine the impact, because most institutions want an essay that is 1 to 2 pages in length. Many have a minimum word count, some have a maximum word count, and with a quarter of the universities in the United States accepting the common application form, of which a smaller number coalition, it's one essay fits all, and they do have a maximum count.
That's very interesting because the university I'm applying, it's for a master program. They're just allow me to write 250 words, and it's quite of like very hard. I pass a little bit of myself, my personality, and my life in 250 words. It's been hard.
It's very hard. And one of my points is you have to be complete in your messaging, and it needs to be concise. I
Yeah.
will tell you, Glenda, that while this workshop is designed for undergraduates, you can certainly use the content for graduate study. The big difference is when it's for graduate studies, more often than not, you're trying to convince them why they should choose you for a particular major, a particular program. At the undergraduate level, the essay topics are much more general.
Yeah,
Have
I
that
figured that.
luxury. Okay. We also say here, it's really important to be creative and to have fun with your essay because you need to keep the reader engaged. Believe it or not, I used to work for a university that would receive about 60,000 applications. The maximum amount of time when I worked for that university for the entire review of a student's application was 10 to 15 minutes. Now you're seeing the value of having an essay that's concise and accurate, smooth, clear, complete. But you also want to engage us, right? Because when I worked for that university, I was reading between 80 and 100 applications a day. And I know all of you are sitting in your seat and saying, I'm hoping that I'm the first essay she reads and not the last essay she reads. But the reality is you don't know when we're going to be reading them. So keep us engaged. You want to get the reader to want to continue to read. I'm going to give you some examples here of essays that kept the reader engaged. They're also really creative, and it's going to be a combination of a few things. You're going to hear me read things that are creative and keep the reader engaged, things that are just creative, and things that have humor, are informative, they mean they teach the reader something, and you're still keeping us engaged. I'll be reading you 3 excerpts. Here is the first. I hear noises all around me, honking horns, wailing sirens, and roaring engines. But they don't bother me. I'm actually enjoying them. Sensing them so near reminds me that I'm doing something good, something different, something courageous. Did that engage you? Unmute yourself. Are you curious to figure out what this person's doing?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think they're doing?
Like it's in a going to a place, right?
Could be. Anyone else want to take a guess of what this person's doing?
Writing the essay.
Yes, what she's writing about. I hear noises all around me, honking
Something important to
horns.
her?
I'm doing something good, something different, something courageous. What is she doing? I've piqued all of your curiosities. I'm not sure if I'm going to tell you. Let me read another one to you. In calculating the distance of a trip to the other side of the world, one might typically consider the standard unit of measurement, kilometers or miles, depending where you live. I'm measuring my trip in a different unit of measurement. Apple pies.
Very different.
Very different, very creative,
Now I want to
very
know
engaging, and
why.
makes you want to read more.
Yeah, now I'm curious why, like apple pies, right? Why? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is he or she going to tell?
Could be. So with the first one I read you, this person was simply riding a bicycle through the streets of their city, but there are no bike paths. And there's safety issues in her city, in her country. And a 1-lane road is meant for 2 cars, and then you put a bicyclist in there. In this case, there were these horrible mudslides in the Philippines. And this gentleman took his grandmother's secret recipe and used 400 kilos of apples and 200 pie shells and 60 pounds or kilos, 30 kilos of sugar and 15 kilos of flour and baked apple pies and sold them to raise enough money to rebuild a school and supply the school with equipment. But he engaged me in his opening statement. He made me want to read more. And what you're seeing here is some of the most simple topics, like riding a bicycle or a passion for service, can be delivered in such a fabulous way to engage a reader. And we love humor and we love to learn. So here's another one. And remember, in the beginning, I told you, you don't know your audience, right? So I have a little surprise for you when I read you this one. My dream come true would be to work for Walmart. Do all of you know what Walmart is?
I do.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so in the United States, you don't need a college degree to work for Walmart. So I just wanted to share that with you. That's what I tell people when they ask me what I want to do when I graduate from university. When I tell them my dream, they don't even seem to suppress their laughter or their surprise. I get a kick out of staring at their dropped jaws and their wide eyes. Perhaps they imagine me as a Walmart greeter, welcoming the customers due to my bubbly personality and informing them about the sales and where they could find what it is they're looking for. My dream job, however, is a little bit higher up the corporate ladder. I want to be the next Margaret McKenna, chair of the Walmart Foundation. Now, she proceeds to tell me, so I'm learning, that the Walmart Foundation has donated over $500 million to charities across the world. Did you all know that? I didn't.
No.
And she references Margaret McKenna. About 26 years ago, Margaret McKenna was the president of a university I worked for, and I worked for her. Don't know your audience, so lucky she only praised her, right? Because what if she said something not so pleasant about this woman? A great, great essay of a change agent young woman. Here's another one. And this is the opening statement. I quit my job. It engaged me. It piqued my curiosity. I wanted to know more. I think I've made the point here, right? The value and importance of being creative, engaging the reader, and if you can teach us something, all the power to you. We love that too. And I'm going to give you a piece of advice because I said this when we did the true false. So when you're doing an essay for a particular school, it's okay to put that university's name into the essay. But if you're doing a coalition application or a common application, don't make the mistake, and we see it all the time, of putting another university's name into your essay, because that's closing a door for you rather than opening it. Imagine 50 or 60,000 applications. They only want to bring in 2,000 or 3,000 seats. By putting the wrong university's name in the essay, they're going to interpret that as that you're really not interested in them. So why should they give up a seat for you? I always say have your essay proofread by someone else, a teacher, just to make sure that your voice is being heard. Let them know about that 25-75% rule. And often when you've read something so many times, it happens to me all the time. I noticed it today. I sent out an email, a reminder email to all of our prospects in Brazil about today's event. I must have read that email 3 or 4 times before I hit send. Then someone replied back to me and I looked at the email and I realized, oh my goodness, this word is spelled correctly, but it's the wrong word. It was as instead of and. And I cringe. So another piece of advice, I encourage you, after you read your essay, proofread it backwards. I need to do that more often, even with my email messages. Often when you read something backwards, you're going to catch any grammar and or spelling mistakes you have. So what do you think mundane topics are? You've already heard some in the examples that I've read you, but truthfully, some of the best essays I've read are about some of the most mundane topics. So are any of you comfortable screaming out to me by unmuting yourself what you believe some mundane topics could be?
Maybe like a task that you do at home, like a common task.
Absolutely. Any others? How about something you enjoy doing? I've had students write about a certain place that they go to where they actually meditate. I've had one of my all-time favorite essays is about a student who used the concept of a recipe and wrote a recipe, but the content, the ingredients, and the instructions of putting it together was actually her. So the ingredients were components of her personality, and the instructions in putting it together was what she felt made her who she was. But we're talking about baking and cooking and a recipe. We are looking, and you can see, I'm still reciting that as my favorite essay, and I promise you, that's still been my favorite essay for over 10 years. So if there are no more questions about the do's, let's get to the don'ts. What's a cliche? This is what we're going to be covering in this section. Cliches, inappropriate and controversial topics, persuasive essays, and of course, plagiarism. What are cliches? Does anyone know what the term commonly used expressions, commonly overused, not even commonly used, overused expressions? What do you think some expected topics for essays could be?
I don't know, maybe emphasizing your grades, just the grades.
Depends. We often see sports because it's repeating something that's in their application. So, but grades could be something as well. It's how something is written. And the reason why I mentioned sports is because if it's clear throughout a student's application that he or she is all about a particular activity, maybe they play for their varsity sports team in high school, maybe they play for a club team or a semi-pro team, maybe they have a recommendation letter from their coach. Why would you write your essay about that sport? Remember early on, we were trying to make you become three-dimensional. We're trying to get to know you better. And if all we are reading about is one sport, take a different approach to that sport. Instead, maybe write about leadership or being a team player. Show us that you're not just one-dimensional. So don't write about an expected topic that's highlighted elsewhere. We often see students also write about a role model. And I love those essays, but more often than not, they're written incorrectly. 75% of the story is all about the role model, like a history paper, rather than making the role model 20% or 25%, and then highlighting how this person impacted you to being the person that you are today. Cliche, so we have a good idea of an expected topic, right? Now we'll touch upon cliches, and I've given you some examples because I pull these out every single year. I'm going to read an essay to you, and it's an example of what I keep in my stack full of essays, and I use all the time because I challenge myself with it. This is an essay that starts off with a cliche, and I stopped reading the essay. I have no idea, and this essay is now 13 years old, what this person has written about. And I keep it in here because I'm waiting for that day that my curiosity is piqued and I decide to read what they wrote about, but it hasn't gotten to that point yet. Let me give you the opening sentence, the cliche, and then I would like a few of you, if you're willing, to unmute yourself and tell me how they could have written this different to allow me to continue to read on. This year, I made a decision that would change my life forever. I don't know about you. I'm probably double, if not triple, some of your ages. And I wouldn't even use the term changing my life forever because I don't know when forever is. So how else could this person have written that opening sentence to engage me, to make me want to read more rather than closing the door altogether? Does anyone want to give me an example?
For example, I can give you.
Perfect.
For example, if what he was doing on the exactly time that he wrote this, what phase of his life he was. He's talking
Right.
about the future, but what happened before that?
Right. What start off with the decision. Don't tell me it's changing his life forever. Start off with what the decision is.
Or what his life
Engage me
was.
to read more. What could a decision have been that would change your life forever? That potentially wouldn't be something that would happen 5 years later or 10 years later. Start off with the fact. What do you think an impersonal or general essay is? What do you think that means? What's my golden rule? I'm sorry, Cynthia, I cut you off. What were you saying?
Maybe just listing all your accomplishments. Just, oh, I
Right,
made
like
this, I made that. Like, I'm talking about me, but I'm focusing on something like outside me.
a top 10 list.
Yes.
Absolutely. I would agree wholeheartedly. Remember the golden rule, 25% stories, 75% about you. If you submit a general essay and I'm learning nothing about you, what does that tell me? Why would I want you on my campus? You've told me nothing about yourself. We want to see a deeper insight. I'm going to give you a little example. I'm not even going to read it to you because it's so darn boring. But here is someone, remember I said early on, write about what you're passionate about. Don't write about what you think we want to read because it can backfire on you. Here's one of those examples. This student starts off by saying, I was originally introduced to Bentley University when I came to visit the university. He proceeds to tell me that he sat in on an information session and then took from it certain components and then chose to go on a tour. He goes on the tour and then repeats, gives me his tour guide's name, and then repeats those certain places he visited on campus, what the tour guide told him that he liked so much. Okay, I've been working for Bentley for 20 years. I already know these facilities. I deliver the information session. I don't need you to repeat it to me. I would have much rather had you have written an essay about one thing you learned and maybe how that inspired your career path or your aspirations of subjects to study, where I would have learned something more about you rather than you telling me the message that I deliver multiple times a day, every day while I'm at work. Do you see the point I'm making? Deny. Now, believe it or not, each year we have several essays that are inappropriate. This is just not appropriate for your college application. Think about it. Do you think we really want to read about your first sexual experience? I get essays all the time about one's first kiss. Do I look like I'm a diary? Or if you've ever heard the expression, Dear Abby, which was a newspaper clipping where you would write to someone in a newspaper and they'd give you advice. We're not psychology majors in admission. So these are some of the most obvious inappropriate essay topics, but can anyone throw out there some other examples of inappropriate essay topics? How about an obsession?
Maybe talking about controversial politics topics.
Yeah, that is
Races.
part of our controversial topics, Cynthia, and you're absolutely right. I'm going to give you a quick example of an inappropriate essay topic, and then we'll jump into the controversial. So yes, underage drug or alcohol use, remember the drinking age in the US is 21 years of age. So even if the drinking age is different in your home country, it's just not appropriate to write your college essay about this. But here's a young lady who wrote her college essay about an obsession. And remember, you don't know your audience. Some people call it a crazy obsession. Others say, I'm living in a dream world. I truly believe I'm going to marry Jason Varitek, captain and catcher for the Boston Red Sox, which is our professional baseball team, for those of you who don't know. No, I'm not insane. I'm a diehard Red Sox fanatic who is also the captain's biggest fan. Now, this is the sentence that really made her not get admitted. Everything about Jason Veritek models what I admire in a person and what I strive for in myself. Remember, you don't know your audience. I am a huge sports fan. I probably go, at one point in time, I was at least going to 7 or 8 Red Sox games a year, but I never would miss a game on television. So I'm very familiar with who Jason Veritek is, and I could probably, even today, even though he's since retired, draw a sketch of him. Indeed, he was the captain of his baseball team, but he was quite controversial. At one point, it was said he allowed the players to drink alcohol while they were playing professional games in the clubhouse. He also had an affair on his wife, and it made national news because it was with a sports anchor woman, and he left his wife and 2 sons for her. And yet, this young lady's closing statement was, everything about Jason Veritek models what I admire in a person and what I strive for in myself. Would you admit her after what I just told you? Because clearly she didn't know her audience.
No.
Exactly. Inappropriate essay topic about obsession, but it brings up the other point is you don't know who your audience is. Controversial essay topics. Share with me what you think some controversial essay topics can be. You mentioned it already, Cynthia. You mentioned politics. What else? Race, religion,
Religion, yes.
ethnicity, gender, women. Some are not as blatant. Some can be divorce. In the country of India, a woman can be stoned to death if she requests a divorce. So divorce is very controversial for women in India. Now, I'm not saying you cannot write a controversial essay topic. It's daring, but if done well, they're some of the best essays. But they must be written in good taste. If you choose to write a controversial essay topic, remember 25% stories, 75% about you. I believe you must solicit advice from a teacher and or an adult who can help you determine if your essay is appropriate. And if you are insulting any particular group of persons, ask yourself, am I offending a person, a culture, a religious group, a gender? And if the answer is maybe, then just don't write it at all, because you don't want to close a door when a door you want to open wider and wider for you. Let me ask you a very silly question. Why do you go to school? You don't know why you go to school?
To prepare for a profession. This is one of the reasons.
Yeah, you want to learn, right? Why do you then apply to university or graduate school? You want to learn more. So why would you write a persuasive essay which cannot hold to that fast rule of 25-75? Why would you want to write an essay that would demonstrate biases? And why would you want to write an essay that more often than not, when it's a persuasive essay, you are telling the reader it's your way and your way is the only way? Universities are looking for students who are open-minded and eager to learn different things. When you're writing for admission into any university, it is not the foreground for a debate, and therefore avoid a persuasive essay altogether. I remember an essay about illegal immigration, during which the student expressed his extremely strong opinions on the issue and proposed a solution that assumed that the reader would agree. And if the reader did not agree, blatantly indicated that they were wrong. An essay like that, time after time, can negatively impact a decision. Any questions so far?
No.
We're now on our last slide, and that is plagiarism. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to take away an admissions decision because I discovered that a student plagiarized their essay. Now, there's the common plagiarism. Now, if you want to quote someone, as long as you give credit to the person who you are citing, that's absolutely fine. But often people forget to give credit, and there is software out there that helps guide us to see if something comes from a published piece of work or an article in a newspaper or an article that's been published online. But plagiarism is a lot more than that. It's taking someone else's ideas or having someone else write your essay for you. And for me, one of the most painful but blatant experiences of plagiarism, where it wasn't about citing an author, happened 2 years ago to me, where a student applied early decision, which is a binding contract. They were class valedictorian, straight A student, wrote this fabulous essay about mathematics. And I did all my due diligence and researched the essay because it was really that good. Couldn't find anything that indicated that it was plagiarized. So I attributed the quality of the writing to the individual being a solid performer, class valedictorian, and it mirrored truthfully his overall academic profile. I read that essay in early November. He received his decision in January. He made his deposit. He received a scholarship, and we were good. In February, I received an application from the same country, but a different school, with almost the same essay. And my heart just sank. So I had to do some research. And I started that in the end of February. And I spoke to both students to find out if they knew each other, and they didn't. So they had nothing in common, because I thought, oh, maybe they were friends and he shared, the first kid I admitted shared his essay with someone else. No. Checked my softwares, talked to both of the guidance counselors, the college counselors at their secondary school, had no insight for me. Spoke with the principal of the school of which the second student had applied from. His application profile was significantly weaker, so the quality of his essay did not mirror at all his grades. So I asked the principal to ask the student to rewrite another essay for me. I would accept it late, but I wanted him in a classroom where the teacher was present or a school official, So I knew that they couldn't cheat while they wrote this essay, because I wanted to see if the quality of writing mirrored what was in his essay. The student refused, so I denied his admission due to fraud. That was in April when they got that decision. Now, the parents of the student were furious because how could I deny one student and the other one had been admitted already? So the parents took it upon themselves to do a little more digging, along with the guidance counselors. I had not given this up, only to find out that in July, we found the common thread. Well, I should say in June. And they both were using the same independent counselor. So in theory, they paid someone to write their essay. And there's some good independent counselors and there's some bad independent counselors. And so the independent counselor, in fear of getting their reputation destroyed, admitted that he wrote the essay and that he used that essay for multiple students, not just the two that had applied to Bentley. Can you imagine in July getting a phone call from me saying, I'm sorry, I know you've been admitted, I know you've received a scholarship, I know that this is a binding contract, but you lied on your application. When you signed that application, you said that all of the work was originally yours, and I've since learned that someone else wrote your essay. So even that is plagiarism. So I hate closing on a sour note, but I will say this. Too often, students stress out because they do not have a life-changing event or huge revelation to use as an essay topic. That is okay. Just be sincere, genuine, and insightful. And once again, some of the best essays are those mundane topics that you are so passionate about. Thank you. I am stopping to share my screen and I'm opening this up for anyone that may have any questions. In the chat feature, I did put our registration. Please take a moment today and register for this event. In response, I will send you tips on writing your college essay, a summary of the do's and don'ts for your college essay, and also some guidelines on preparing a winning application. I know that we started about an hour ago, so you may have Zoom fatigue. I am willing to stay on for anyone who wants to learn about Bentley specifically. Otherwise, I thank you so much today, and here's your opportunity to leave the webinar. But thank you all for participating. I really appreciate your participation in this event.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. I liked all the information that you have and could share with us in Brazil. Thank you for this experience, and it will help us in this process. I'm glad that I was here listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karina. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, it was very informative. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Did
Cynthia.
get some really good insights. And can I ask a question?
Of course.
Like you said in the beginning that the focus would be like essays for undergraduates, right? And
Yes.
I know that it is different, like an essay for a master's degree. And I know that this is not the focus, the topic, but in a short time, could you give me like some hints, like apart from the ones that it was like already stated in the presentation about
Absolutely, Cynthia. I used to do graduate admissions for 17 years. And I did graduate admissions prior to doing undergrad. So I have knowledge on reading the essays at the graduate level. And believe it or not, I help a lot of Bentley students when they then go on and want to do graduate work with their graduate degrees. More often than not, it's becoming much more competitive because more graduate programs provide a lot of funding, right, for students. And so the additional recommendation I would make is, as you look at the universities for graduate studies that you want to pursue, look specifically at the faculty and the type of research that these faculty are doing and see if they align specific to what your aspirations are. Because the more competitive university you're applying to, let me throw out Cornell or Harvard, for example. It's not just your grades and or your work experience that will help you get in. It's also going to be if your aspirations can contribute to a research that a faculty member is doing. Because the faculty often are making those graduate school decisions. Unless you're looking at a business school like Bentley, it's usually that admissions office. But when I worked for a graduate school program, it was more the faculty that were making those decisions because their departments were given so much money and they were looking for students who could add value to their research. So that would be the additional piece that I would highlight.
Okay, so in such an essay, like you would say that this percentage, like 75 about me, maybe it should be different, like
Well, in theory, it would be both, right? Because let's say that I am doing research on, I'm making this up, right? But I know that there's truth to this. The impact of plastics in the ocean and how they're impacting sea life, right? And let's say the university that I'm applying to for graduate studies has a strong marine biology division that is an environmental science and sustainability, and they work collaboratively together. But maybe they don't have all the links, but it's your passion that could bring those links together. You might want to highlight that passion and your aspirations, because then those departments are going to see how you can bring it together. It's still all about you, but you're catching their intention. You're engaging them by talking about fields that you want to pursue that they want to better. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you very much again.
You're very welcome. Are there any other questions? Am I to assume that the rest of the people in this chat room are here to learn about Bentley and want me to go over a 12-minute presentation about Bentley or a 14-minute presentation? I am very familiar with Zoom fatigue. Or are you just too shy to leave the room while I'm still here? Because I don't want to get started if you're not intending to stay, and I don't want you to feel obligated to stay.
Guys, it's really up to you.
I understand Zoom fatigue so much. So I'm trying to be respectful of Zoom fatigue, but I also don't want to deprive you of a Bentley presentation. And we are a business school, if that's something that interests you. So Anna, Karina, Alina, 838-490, Lucas, Glenda, Vitor, do you still want me to stay on and give you a Bentley presentation? You can put a response in the chat.
I want.
Okay. All right then. So once again, once I share my screen, I'm not going to be able to see you, so feel free to interrupt me, and I will not be offended by that, and we'll move from there. I will take natural pauses, so feel free to take advantage of those natural pauses as well. So whether you know this or not, now there's over 5,000 universities in the United States, and we offer so many opportunities. So I want to highlight a little about Bentley, but really what makes Bentley different and unique. I also want to share with you that I do read all the applications from Brazil. So if you do choose to apply, I would be the person that you would connect with. And when this is done, I will put in the chat feature my email address for you. So let's get started. Bentley University. Bentley was founded in 1917 as an accounting school by a gentleman named Harry Bentley, and we were physically located in downtown Boston in a section called Beacon Hill. Over the years, we have evolved. We moved in 1968 to a city called Waltham, which is considered the Silicon Valley of the East Coast, and is the best of both worlds for our students. We're about 15 minutes or 13 kilometers from downtown Boston, and we're an enclosed college campus, but Boston truly is just minutes away. Bentley started off as an accounting school and now has become the only business university in the United States. Here are some basic facts about our institution. We are a private institution. We're medium-sized with about 5,500 undergraduate students. We offer bachelor's, master's, and PhD programs in business and business-related fields. At Bentley, we have absolutely no lecture halls, and we don't even build our classrooms to fit more than 35 students. So our average student-teacher ratio is 1:11, while our average classroom size is just 24 students at the undergrad level. I also want to draw your attention to our diversity. We're 23% international students representing nearly 100 different countries in the world. But what stands out for many is our ranking. Just a couple of weeks ago, Bentley was ranked #1 by US News and World Report for being the best regional university in the Northeast region of the United States. Business Week also ranked Bentley as one of the top 10 business schools in the United States. So what makes us unique? It's these 4 pillars: academics, technology, hands-on learning, and career services that I want to highlight for you today because it's truly our distinctive characteristics. I'm very much a visual learner, and so I want to explain to you how this works. Let's focus on academics first. As you can see at the bottom of this pyramid, it says General Business Core Courses. And at Bentley, whether you choose to major in finance, or maybe it's sustainable science, economics, or history, all of our students will be taking General Business Core Courses. It's our belief that the foundation of business benefits all students regardless of their major. This is what distinguishes Bentley from any other university in the United States, those General Business Core Courses. And that's what makes us a business university. But we also value the arts and sciences. Unlike in Brazil, when you go to university, you have one major, you start that major, and all your courses are in that field. At Bentley, you're not admitted into a major. you're admitted into the university. And that's true for many universities in the United States. We want to allow you the opportunity to be flexible and change your mind. And so we also provide courses in the arts and sciences because our mission is to create a well-rounded, educated student. And the arts and sciences teach critical thinking and research skills, which are valuable in any industry. But unlike our colleagues that have required arts and science courses, we do something different and something unique at Bentley. And that's this optional second major that you see. For students who choose Bentley and want to major in an arts and science field like history or public policy, political science, these general education courses that you see here can become a double major in business studies. Our students are still graduating in 4 years, but we'll put a value to these core courses. And for our business majors who may have a passion in an arts and science field, we allow you to choose those general education core courses in the arts and sciences based on your own interests and allow those to become a double major in the liberal studies. Here's a snip of all the universities, all the majors that we have at our university. We offer 26 majors, 38 minors, and as you can see, the fields that have asterisks are our STEM fields. So for those of you interested in a STEM field, as you may or may not know, you can stay in the United States for 3 additional years after graduation to work in our country. I think at this point, you've seen a really good integration of business and the arts and sciences. Any questions so far? Okay. Well, then you saw that the second pillar was technology. And we infuse technology into our learning. Bentley has invested over $316 million in creating 6 high-tech facilities. In fact, there's no university in the world that has all of these same high-tech facilities in one institution. And better yet, all of our students have the opportunity to work in these high-tech facilities. Now, while I don't have time to explain them all to you, I do want to highlight our trading room. There's 11 other universities in addition to Bentley that have simulated stock market trading rooms on their campus. But Bentley's is the most impressive, and it's the largest university trading room in the United States. We have 24 Bloomberg terminals, and students can trade on the stock market and utilize analysis tools and databases to make real decisions. In fact, our simulated stock market trading room has the stock exchanges of every country in the world that has a stock market real time. This facility also gains exposure to our students with the intricacies of risk management, asset valuation, and portfolio construction. Our students can actually leave Bentley and be Bloomberg certified. But what's equally impressive and stands out about this facility is it's the only one that has security clearance from the US government. So it's the only facility that actually is a backup to the stock exchange. So now you've seen the integration of business, arts and science, and technology. What distinguishes us further is our philosophy of teaching, and we teach through experiential learning, which is also known as hands-on learning. That can be done through research, And because we're predominantly an undergraduate university, our students get to do research, publish papers, and present internationally at conferences. And yet we also deliver our experiential learning in these 4 areas: study abroad, service learning, corporate partnerships, and internships. Study abroad, we have over 85 programs in 30 countries. And like most universities, we offer them for a semester, a year, or a summer. But distinctive to Bentley is we have this fabulous semester embedded program, which are international courses led by faculty, where you take a course and you take what you're learning and you apply it into the real world. So imagine taking an entrepreneurship class and then the entire class going to the country of Morocco and opening up 6 companies for women. Or imagine taking a global tourism class or hospitality management class and going to Croatia and working with the government to enhance its tourism advertisement. Or maybe it's a finance class and going to Shanghai, or an accounting class and going to Beijing, and implement what you're learning into the finance and business investment industries. Or maybe it's majoring in our health studies major, where you go to Ghana, Africa, and apply what you're learning to deal with the health challenges and supply issues and getting materials to rural areas. This is where we take things a step further. And in service learning, yes, that's community service. At Bentley, we not only believe in teaching you how to make a living, but the value and importance of giving back. And therefore, we not only offer you local, national, and international community service projects, but we also give you the opportunity to earn additional course credit by taking your service learning project, bringing it into the classroom, and enhance the discussion and learning that takes place. What really distinguishes us, though, are our corporate partnerships. Unique to Bentley, through these relationships, our students get to learn firsthand through the lens of a particular company or industry, nonprofit or government agency, who come in and co-teach the classrooms where you work with these industries to address business challenges. Bentley students created the advertising campaign for Ford Motor Company's Ford Fusion. Bentley students were working on the prototype of what you now see is a tablet PC or an iPad. Bentley students were behind the project for Converse of custom designing your own sneaker. Every student will take at least one corporate partnership course. But what we're most known for is our internships. Of the 5,000 institutions in the United States, since 2008, Bentley has consistently ranked among the top 5 for having the best internship program in the country. Nearly all of our students do one internship. 3/4 of our students do multiple internship. And here's an opportunity for us to adjust your student visa, to allow you to get paid, and to actually go out into the industry and dive deep and get that exposure of applying what you're learning into the real world and actually seeing what your future career path would look like. Average starting salaries for career internships is between $20 and $25 an hour. But I do want to draw your attention to this ranking. For the 3rd time in 5 years, surpassing the Ivy Leagues, Bentley has ranked #1 in the United States for having the best career service center. We have the highest job placement rate in the nation, with our starting salaries beginning at $60,000 a year. Here's just a quick snapshot of some of the 1,500 companies that come to Bentley each year to hire our students. But we're not just all about academics. We're Division I and Division II university, offering full and partial scholarships in 23 varsity sports. We have over 100 different student organizations and clubs on campus that range from sororities and fraternities to cultural programming, extreme sports, academic programming, to sustainability, equestrian, or even skydiving. So how can you become a Bentley student? We're a common application school. We require the common application form, 2 letters of recommendation, and if English is not your first spoken language, you will need to take either a TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo, and we also accept the Cambridge Assessment Exam. And we do accept the home versions for both the TOEFL and IELTS. We do need to see your standard, your official secondary school transcripts. But when it comes to standardized tests for the 2021-2022 year, we've gone test optional. And for the 2022 year and beyond, right now we're test flexible. So I encourage you to check our website to see what options you have based on your curriculum and in Brazil on whether or not that would meet our test flexible policy. At Bentley, your application to the university is automatically your application for merit-based scholarships. And for international students, we offer up to full tuition and fee scholarships for our applicants. About 70% of our international students receive some type of merit award. I already told you about our athletic scholarships, and those are determined by our coaches. But for the ladies in the audience, I also want to draw your attention to our Women's Leadership Program. Now, this is a program, but the reason why it's listed under scholarships is if you're selected into this program, that does require an additional essay, and that's attached to the common application form. It comes with a $10,000 a year stipend. So if you were, for example, to receive a full tuition merit-based scholarship, in addition to that, you could also receive a $10,000 a year Women's Program Award, and that could apply to your room and board. Need-based aid is awarded to U.S. citizens and eligible permanent residents, and one must fill out both the FAFSA form and the CSS profile. At this time, we do not have need-based aid to international students. Here is our cost of attendance, of which, as indicated before, tuition and fees can be covered by our full scholarships. And after your first year at Bentley, you can apply to be what's known as a resident assistant. And if selected, that would eliminate the cost of room and board. Here are our application deadline dates. Bentley on November 15th is the first deadline date for early decision, which is a binding contract. If admitted, you must attend and you will learn of your decision in late December. We also have early decision 2, which is also a binding contract. That deadline date is January 7th. You will learn of your decision by February 1st, and you must confirm your enrollment because that too is binding by the middle of February. And finally, we have regular. That application deadline date is January 7th. You will learn of your decision by late March, and you will have until May 1st to make up your mind if you want to attend that school. And that is non-binding. With every acceptance letter, one would receive their merit scholarship as well if they were to receive a merit award. Any questions? I will put into that was my Bentley presentation for you. I'm putting into the chat my email address. So in case you later have questions, or if you want to know who your contact is for Bentley, my address is there. Once again, I remind you to please register on our registration link that I just put into the chat a final time. That way you will be able to get the handouts on not just our do's and don'ts on writing a college essay, but also in preparing a winning application. If there are no questions, I once again want to thank you all for being here with us today.
Thank you very much, Carrie. It has been great, very informative. I'm sure everyone took advantage of your knowledge. Thank you very much. Muito
Thank you so much for
obrigada.
having me. And I thank you guys for staying over to hear about Bentley.
Yes, sure. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.